Growing up, I was homeschooled. For me, this meant many things. An education focused more on basics, for one. Math, spelling, vocabulary and usage, some history. Most importantly, being homeschooled involved being alone all day, working diligently through my assignments until I completed them, at which point the school day would be over and I would be free. Being alone for so long, so often, greatly impacted who I am. I was, and still am, more likely to rely on my own abilities and textbooks than to ask a teacher. I don't do small talk very well. I simply never saw the point of it. But one of the biggest differences I perceive between my upbringing and that of most of my friends was the role of technology. The first real difference I noticed was in activities. They watched cartoons, I read books. It didn't seem unusual to me. I had never been allowed to even think about touching the television, and so I didn't miss it. Aside from the occasional movie, I never looked at it. In my house, technology was not the focus. It acted in a limited, supporting role. My first real exposure to technology came at my grandparents' house, playing timeless classics on their decrepit Windows 3.1 Packard Bell. Playing for a few hours every year, I quickly began to take over the high scores. Chip's Challenge, Rodent's Revenge, Asteroids, Lunar Command. One by one, the standing scores of my siblings and cousins fell, and I found myself hooked on a new world, one of infinite possibilities, commanded by simple arrow keys. A few years later, I was introduced to the Portsmouth Abbey Computer Lab and discovered StarCraft. Soon, I was spending all my time there, quickly learning the counters and strategies of real-time strategy gameplay. Unfortunately, or perhaps not, my unexplained absences resulted in discovery and a ban on going to said lab, along with additional restrictions anytime I left the house. However, that didn't stop me. It simply forced me to be more covert. Once I had beaten all of the fun flash games I could find on my slow home computer, I got together with a gang of similarly banned friends, and together we learned how to evade discovery while getting as much time at the keyboard as possible. Real-time strategy games shifted out of my primary focus, sharing the field with first-person shooters and eventually sandbox games. Arrow keys shifted into W, A, S, and D, and the host of subordinate keys clustered around them. Little by little, I was being sucked into a captivating world from which there would be no escape. Moving into high school, I found myself in a technological world on a whole new level. Nearly everyone had a smartphone, some sort of cell phone, or at least an iPod. I was still only using one personal electronic device, the wristwatch. Most of the gamers played not on computers, but on television consoles, with controllers instead of keyboards and mice. But these paled in comparison to the larger difference I saw. For me, though I was in the habit of spending hours on gaming, it wasn't something I had access to at all times, and I would always put academics first if I had to make the choice of how to spend my time. Well, enough to get good grades anyway. I knew that the computers I used weren't going anywhere, and that I would be able to get back to them when I had free time to kill. However, it seemed as though most people thought that their technological habits were their first priority, having their phones on and with them at all times, and frequently using them even when it was inappropriate to do so. Even bringing their phones to sports practice, despite the fact that they would not be allowed to touch them until practice was over, as if something incredibly urgent might pop up on the walk back to the door. Spending so much time gaming that their grades declined to the point where they had to be banned from the computer lab. I still don't have a Facebook, any touchscreen devices, or any video game consoles. I don't wish I had them, and I've done just fine without them. I don't think the world would be a better place without them. These technologies are neither good nor bad. Human actions simply force upon them the appearance of one or the other. But I do think that they are being overused. I understand that some people need them for various reasons. I just don't think anyone could actually need to use their devices as often as they do. So here's my challenge. Try using them only when absolutely necessary for a few days. If you end up with scads of free time, pick up a book. After all, we do have a school library with both fiction and nonfiction collections. Your devices will still be there when you need them, and who knows, you might actually decide that you like the freedom of being disconnected for a little while. And anyway, next time the power goes out, you won't have to panic as your batteries inexorably run down.